Pan-Africana, Fanti Confederation.
Off with this head, off with this head, off with this head, off with this head. I cut you down with my machete. I cut you down with my machete, Off with this head, off with this head, off with this head, off with this head. I cut you down with my machete. I cut you down with my machete, You either running to it or you're running from it. Tell me, brother, where you're running? You're either running scared or you're running free. Tell me, sister, how you running? If you're the big tree and all the small legs, chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away. Call me timber. Off with this head, off with this head, off with this head, off with this head. I cut you down with my machete. I cut you down with my machete, Off with this head, off with this head, off with this head, off with this head. I cut you down with my machete. I cut you down with my machete, Only way to kill a beast to attack the root. Pull it up from the ground and destroy the fruit. You're either telling lies or you're telling truth. Tell me, brother, sister, what do you do? If you're the big tree and I'm the small legs, chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away. Call me timber. Off with this head, off with this head, off with this head, off with this head. I cut you down with my machete. I cut you down with my machete, Off with this head, off with this head, off with this head, off with this head. I cut you down with my machete. I cut you down with my machete, Almost out of time. Gotta free your mind.
Phoenix put herself on mute while the film is screening. Do you know how to push mute on your phone, Afro Phoenix?
Do I know how to push what?
Mute on your phone.
Yeah. Let me open it up. Okay, *6.
This cut is that Mau Mau, that 21st century anti-colonial propaganda. Candace Antique, Pan-Africana, Fanti Confederation.
Off with this head, off with this head, off with this head, off with this head. I cut you down with my machete. I cut you down with my machete, Off with this head, off with this head, off with this head, off with this head. I cut you down with my machete. I cut you down with my machete, You either running to it or you're running from it. Tell me, brother.
Okay, greetings, everybody. Thank you. Welcome. We got folks watching us live on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Hopefully you can hear us and you can see us. If you are having any issues hearing or seeing the stream, please let us know in the chat and we will address. But this is the monthly Pan-African film series presented to you by the Southwest chapter of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. We do these on the second Saturday of every single month. We have done so for over 3 years. We started doing them in person at Highland High School here in Tiwa Territory. And then when the pandemic hit, we took it virtual. And now folks join us from all over the world to participate in viewing collectively and discussing a number of revolutionary, Pan-African, or anti-colonial or socialist films. So this month, for the July film series, we have a fan favorite, a very, very popular film among revolutionary African people, but that's like not super known outside of that circle. And that film is the Spook Who Sat by the Door, which was released in the 70s, directed by Sam Greenlee. It's actually based upon a book by the same name. And it's the fictional story of the very first African man to be recruited and hired by the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, aka Criminals in Action. They were hoping with him that they would get like a Kamala Harris, a Barack Obama, a Ketanji Brown Jackson, an African that was going to go along with the plan of the U.S. imperialist empire. And instead, what they got was an African who infiltrated the CIA, learned all their skills, and used those skills to help build a revolutionary movement to counter the U.S. empire. So it's a very, very good film. It's like an action movie. It's like a spy movie. It's like a comedy at points. It makes very insightful social commentary. So we love showing this movie, and we've actually done it every single July for the past 3 years. So we are continuing the tradition today. So we are going to screen this for y'all. And then myself, Monica, my comrade who's on the call with us right now, as well as our comrade Afro Phoenix, who's calling in by phone, are going to discuss the movie with y'all. So watch it, pay attention, take note of what stands out to you or what you have questions about, and then we're going to come back when the movie's over. It's about like 90 minutes long, so probably around like 3:30 Mountain. We're going to come back, and then we're going to talk about it. So without further ado, I'm going to start the film. Again, if you have any questions hearing it or seeing it, please let us know in the chat wherever you're watching, and we will attempt to troubleshoot the technical issues. And also, please, 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 if you're watching it on Facebook, like the post. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video. If you're watching on Twitter, like and retweet. Share the video, like the video. Let's get more eyes so we can have the richest conversation possible. And also so more people can see this amazing movie. So without further ado, let's get into it. And again, let us know in the chat if you have any issues.
All right, this is the gun lap for the re-election, so give it to me straight.
Well, there are no major defectors for campaign contributions, dear. The war chest is in excellent shape.
Good, very good. What is our image, Will?
We've programmed the latest polls, Senator. Lewis Harris gave us a random pattern sampling with peer group anchorage. Gallup, a saturation vertical syndrome study with horizontal personality backstopping. And NORC ran an ethnic study with racial and religious breakdown, status group compensation, and socioeconomic balancing.
Yes, good. But am I winning or losing?
Losing, Senator.
Losing. But why? The computers had me ahead last December.
It checks out on both computers, plus the one we have as a safety valve backstopping cross-check. If the elections were held today, you would lose by 1.846 percentile.
1.846 percentile. Oh, yes. The computers don't lie.
Isn't there a possible breakthrough with any of the peer groups? How are we doing on the Jewish vote?
The senator's solid with the Jews, Mrs. Hennington. The Negroes are the trouble spot.
The Negroes. I'm the best friend those people have in Washington.
The computers indicate a sharp decline immediately after your law and order speech last winter.
All right. Now, let's see if we can come up with some ideas here. First, how do we retrieve the lost black vote?
Gil, why don't we accuse the CIA of a racially discriminatory hiring policy? They have no Negroes, except on a menial level, you know.
Certain, Belinda. I mean, that may be it.
I'm positive, but I'll check it out with our man over at Personnel.
Good.
Whoever they select will be the best-known spy since 007.
You now stand. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do hereby swear to uphold the laws of the United States of America. To uphold the laws of the United States of America.
And those laws governing the Central Intelligence Agency.
do you see in this ink blot?
That's the image.
If I were undercover as a political or economic officer in an embassy and I was questioned about racism in the United States, I'd point out that they also have racial and religious troubles. A thing like that isn't resolved overnight, and that our country is firmly behind racial progress and great strides are being made here.
And so on behalf of the director of our agency, I'd like to offer congratulations on completing our tough preliminary training course. After weeks of physical and psychological testing, you 10 men have survived the more than 40 already sworn in, who in turn were selected from a careful screening and security check of hundreds. You men, therefore, represent the best of your race. The survivors of our regular training course, to begin tomorrow, will be the first of your race to join the finest intelligence and espionage fraternity in the history of mankind. I must emphasize, however, that you are by no means agents as yet. Now, the selecting out process continues right up until graduation day. So, keep on your toes, keep your noses clean, and I hope to congratulate you on joining the team at the end of the training course. Thank you.
Well, ain't it groovy to be a spy?
Right on. Really? Hey, we the first spooks to be spooks for the CIA.
Hey, man, you know how much this scotch costs in the commissary? $3. Shiv ass Regal.
Yeah, and it's cheaper overseas, man.
Yeah, and rent-free housing overseas, too.
Hey, you went to Fisk, didn't you? I'm from Howard. Say, you a frat man?
Yeah, man. Alpha.
No kidding, baby. So am I.
Okay.
Hey, let's get her over there.
Say, didn't we meet last year at the pen relays? Wow, man, yeah. At that party at the motel.
Hey, man, we got it made now. Yeah, but don't forget what Carstairs said. Dig, they can still flunk us out. Yeah, I don't think Carstairs would be uptight if we all flunked out. And you know that PT instructor Calhoun hates us.
Hey, man, it doesn't matter how they feel. You know, the word is integration from the top. Now, some of us have got to make it, and we're it. You just have to understand the theory of tokenism. Look, they grade on a curve. None of us get too eager. Gentlemen see for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, you got a problem.
Four more seconds. As you can see, gentlemen, there is one quick way to fail this course.
Then we take the two wires, we place them here, and we crimp them together, making the connection positive. Take the switch then, and you throw.
All right, we'll operate the ignition by remote control. Always use those materials which are easily accessible to any citizen of the country in which you are operating. Okay.
How long before this experiment in integration ends?
There are only 6 left in the group, General.
And?
The top-ranking man academically will fail the physical requirements. He's no athlete. Another figures to flunk this week's exam, but one might make it.
You assured me 2 weeks ago no one would survive.
Somehow I forgot Freeman even existed. He has a way of fading into the background. But he's been among the top 3 in academics and first in athletic training.
Yes, they do make good athletes. Which one is he?
That one.
Come in.
Hey, Freeman.
Hey. Come on in.
Listen, we're going into Washington. You want to come along with us?
No, got some studying to do.
They've been letting us in town for a month now, man, and you ain't been out of here yet. You're going nuts in here.
Well, maybe next time.
Maybe you ought to cool it.
Cool it?
Cool it. If you weren't so eager to please the white man and send the grading curve up, there'd be 3 times as many of us here now. What kind of Tom are you, anyway?
Same as you, I guess. Except that I don't try to have it both ways. And you better watch what you say about white folks. Behind their back, this place could be bugged.
Are you calling me a Tom, man?
Well, none of us were picked for our militancy now, were we? Now, why don't you go away and let me alone?
Why don't you join the team, man?
Team? Man, I'm not playing any games.
Man, you just don't belong. I think you'd be happier with a mop in your hands.
Like your mama.
Let's step outside now.
No. You don't want to step outside with me. Because, baby, I would kick your ass.
Come on, come on. No, wait a minute, man. No, wait a minute. This fool is crazy, man. Come on.
Glass Courvoisier. And, would you give the young lady down the end of the bar whatever she's drinking?
Yes. This is from the fellow at the end of the bar.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
You looking for some action?
How much?
15 and 5. 5 at the hotel.
Yeah. And all night?
Not on Saturday, baby.
Okay. You know, you remind me of someone.
Oh, really?
Who? A queen.
Look, baby, all you got to do is give me my bread. You don't have to talk no trash.
No, really.
What kind of queen?
A queen from Dahomey.
Dahoo? What the hell is Dahomey?
Dahomey was a great nation in Africa.
Africa?
No, really. I've got a book with a picture of you. Look just like her. I'll give you the book.
Sure.
No. You two could be twins, except that she wore her hair different.
How?
It was kind of like natural, you know, the way it grew. You look good like that.
Look, honey, if you were a hairdresser, maybe I can get you a boy.
No. You'll do.
Good. Then why don't you just be a trick and stop talking all that shit about queens and kinky hair?
Okay. Listen, can I get you another drink?
Mm-hmm. You really got a book with a picture in it that look like me?
I'll bring you the book.
When?
The next time I see you.
Mate. Right. Me. Right. Mr. Freeman, you will stay for additional instruction. Mr. Freeman, I don't think you people belong in our outfit. I don't have anything against the rest of the group. They just don't measure up. But you, I don't like.
I don't understand, sir.
Well, I don't like your phony humility, and I don't like your style. Now, this is a team for men, not misplaced cotton pickers.
Yes, sir.
Stow the as a boss. It doesn't work on me. I'll give you a chance. Just go up to the office and resign. Otherwise, we fight. Now, your black belt matches my own, so you won't be able to whine brutality, equal opportunity you people claim you want. Mr. Sue, Shinbai. Rest?
No. There ain't no rest for the weary.
Calhoun-san, are you all right?
Hey, baby, don't look so sad. Be back in a month.
Well, at least we won't have to stay in a hotel. They let us start commuting in 2 weeks, and I'm gonna get us a pad.
You know, I don't mind this place too much. It kind of reminds me of that hotel off campus. Remember?
Well, listen. What would happen to the Cook County Department of Welfare if the star caseworker misworked tomorrow?
Casework supervisor, honey.
Okay, Miss Big Temple. What would happen?
You mean play hooky?
Yeah. I found a beautiful restaurant last week.
Do they have shark's fin soup?
No, it's a West Indian restaurant.
Oh, shark's fin soup with peas and rice, huh?
Yes.
Hope they stay open late.
They've all been eliminated except Freeman, sir.
Will he make it?
I think so. He has written an oral finals this week.
Security?
Checks out so far. Routine security checks in the training barracks and checks on his activities in Washington. Of course, he's only been allowed out of the training area for the last 2 months.
Anything suspicious?
No, sir. He checked into a colored hotel, spent his weekends in the ghetto, mostly on U Street.
That's pretty tough territory.
Yes, sir, but he seems at home there. He grew up in a neighborhood much like it in Chicago.
How did he get through college?
Athletic scholarship.
That figures. Also explains the Calhoun incident.
Sir, in fairness to Calhoun, Freeman's been studying judo privately for years.
Politics?
Apolitical. He was involved in civil rights activity as a student, but nothing pink or radical.
Men or women?
Women. No hint of homosexuality. Developed a liaison with a prostitute on U Street. Also has a girlfriend in Chicago. Apparently he's known her since they were college students.
When will you run a final 6-9 security check?
It's already in progress. It should be finished in a few days.
Run up a dossier on this whore and give it to me. Leave Freeman's file. Secure security is in.
Yes, sir.
Figured out something for him to do?
Yes, sir.
Well, like it or not, looks as if we're integrated.
You know if he takes any dope? Heroin, LSD, marijuana, pill?
No. He don't even smoke. He ain't no junkie, baby.
Does he have a tendency to boast? Brag about himself?
He don't talk about himself at all. Most regular tricks want to tell you the story of their whole lives.
Does he gamble?
If you do, I don't know about it. Took him to a joint one night. Craps, poker. If he get in, I get a cut. You just stand around and look.
What'd you say? Violent? Uncontrollable temper?
Temper? No. He'll never lose his cool. But people don't give him no shit.
Huh? How do you mean?
He's one of them quiet kind of cats that people just don't mess with. Like that time I was telling you about. The cat that owned it owed me some bread. Started to get off the wall about it. Then he checked out Freeman. Just standing there, quiet, digging the action. And the cat, bad, make 2 of Freeman. Check out Freeman. Look at me. Give me my bread. Thought about that night. He ain't my man or nothing like that, but I know that if I got in trouble, he'd be in it. I think he'd be real bad once he get going, too.
What about his sexual habits?
Huh?
You think he might be homosexual?
No. You wasting your time there.
What is the guiding principle of an underground guerrilla army?
To live off the country. To rely on nothing in the way of logistics or supplies which cannot be obtained easily and simply, whether legally or illegally.
What happens in an underground organization when the first or second in command are killed or captured?
Each man is trained to handle positions 3 steps ahead of him in grade. The operations officer takes over, and the others move up 2 grades.
It's fine. That concludes our oral examination, and let me congratulate you on being the first Negro officer in the Central Intelligence Agency.
We've programmed your aptitudes into our computer personnel system. You're to be our new top secret reproduction center section chief.
Hey,
Oh. Hi, Doris. What brings you all the way down here to the third sub-basement?
the general needs someone to give a guided tour for a bunch of senators. You think you can handle it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can handle it.
Good. Senators are in the general's office now. Freeman, you don't like me, do you?
What makes you say that?
You never seem very friendly when you bring top secret documents to the office. Sometimes it seems like you don't even know I'm around.
Oh, it's just that I'm preoccupied with my duties. I just want to make good here, that's all.
You're very ambitious, aren't you?
Yeah. I want to be the best reproduction section chief they've ever had.
But you are. Everyone says you're doing much better than expected.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Could have been more, didn't it? But, gentlemen, our Mr. Freeman, he'll conduct your tour. Senator Barton, Senator Chambers, Senator Wilson.
Freeman? How do you do? Right this way, gentlemen.
General, I'm delighted. A member of your personal staff already. Now, that's integration in action.
You know, that's not a bad idea. Put him on my personal staff. If he doesn't bungle this tour, we'll keep him up here.
Yes, sir, we can put him out in reception. All our visitors could see we're integrated.
I'm not coming back to Washington anymore, Dan. I'm getting married.
The doctor or a lawyer?
The doctor.
He seems like a nice cat.
I'm sorry, but I'm not getting any younger.
And I'm not in your bag, right? I always knew it had to happen someday. It's all right, baby. Baby. Joy, let's say goodbye right.
Dan, I'm certainly pleased with the way you fitted into the agency. How long have you been with us now?
A bit more than 5 years, sir.
And you've done well. You're a credit to your race.
Thank you, sir.
Hard work, Dan. No shortcuts. Other minorities have pulled themselves up by the bootstraps.
Yes, sir.
You're a perfect example, Dan. Fine, natural athlete. Well, no denying your people are great in sports.
Well, thank you, sir, but we still have a long way to go.
Right. There's still a cultural gap to be closed. It's a question of evolution. Of course, it'll take generations. In the meantime, you people must earn respect by serving the country. Freeman, you people must serve.
General, I want to serve.
I don't understand.
Your comments last Friday afternoon convinced me I can make a real contribution. So I'm going back to Chicago and work with my people in show them the way.
Now, don't be hasty, Freeman. Perhaps you should think this thing over. After all, you do set an example for your people to follow.
Well, I realize that, General, and I have thought about it. But I've decided to take this position with the Social Service Foundation and help my people help themselves. Use what I've learned here.
Well, we'll be sorry to see you go, Dan. Take all the time you need to phase out here. Be sure to let us know how things are going in Chicago.
All right, sir, I will.
Carstairs, bring in Freeman's file. Freeman's leaving us for a do-gooder outfit in Chicago.
More money?
What else? Check out this foundation he used to work for. Saturation and depth security check.
And Freeman?
He's safe enough. A routine surveillance if the foundation is clean. Phone tap. Random and regular checks on his activities and associates.
I'll telex the Chicago office today.
Dan, we really got our work cut out for us. From the fairest young dudes in Chicago, if not the country, operating right here in our territory, the King Cobras.
I used to be a cobra.
You?
Yeah. They used to call me Turk. That gang goes back about 30 years. Listen, do they still hang out down at that, what is it, Pete's?
Yeah, you can find them there any night. Except now they own the place.
Hello, Miss Duncan.
Oh, Mr. Freeman, hi. Why don't you join me?
Good. Listen, that looks good.
It is delicious. You want to try some?
Miss Duncan, how's your son, Shorty, doing?
Oh, Shorty's doing just fine. He got a job now, making good money. In fact, he just bought me a color television set.
Well, I hear that he's not only running numbers, pushing drugs. Hey, he's hooked.
No, he ain't no real junkie. Sure, he shoots up now and then. But I don't think he got no more than about a $20 or $30 a week habit. And that ain't no habit.
Well, did you ever think that he could end up in jail?
Not unless somebody turned the heat on in the precinct. And then I can't hardly see why they'd be after Shorty, because he ain't into it that much.
Shorty ever think about finishing at least high school?
No, he don't want no parts of school. You know how them teachers are.
Well, without an education, what's he going to do?
Mr. Freeman, you know ain't nothing out there for us. But right out there in those streets where Shorty is.
How you doing, Shorty?
Hey, Ted.
I just saw your mother inside the restaurant.
Yeah, I just saw my way down and lay some bread on.
Shorty, the word is on Vine that you're not making your payoff to the cops.
That's the rumor, Ted.
You mind if I give you a little advice?
No, go ahead.
Why don't you just quit dealing altogether?
Oh, man, you know I can't do that, Ted. It's a pilot.
You ever stop to think what would happen in these streets if we cut off the flow of drugs altogether? White folks control your neighborhood through drugs and you dealing.
So what you gonna do now? Give me a sermon?
No sermon, Shorty. I just thought I'd ask. It's our table. I want to talk to you.
No talk.
social worker. You better split. You know who I am?
Yeah, flunkhead. We know who you are.
Let's go out in the alley. This won't take long.
You don't want to go out there, Van. That's the way you want to go. Right now.
Yeah.
Next time, social worker. We have us a piece too.
Shut up and listen. Big time badass cobras. Popping away at the pigs from the rooftops during riots last summer. Oh yeah. I know what you was into. With 22 rifles and pistols, did about as much damage as a mosquito to an elephant's ass. What'd you expect to hit from that range with those weapons at night? You might as well have thrown the damn pieces at the pigs. You really want to mess with Whitey? But I can show you how. I can show you how. You twist the wires to make contact. And throw the switch.
Come on with it. Come on with it. Bring it on here. Easy. Easy now. Take your time.
Slowly, baby.
Touch it off. All right. I'll operate the ignition by remote control. Stand good. And drop it. Now. Get out of here.
That's it. Elbow up. The other elbow underneath the piece. That's it. Parallel to it. That's it. That's it. Lean into it. What's wrong with it?
We don't mess around like a high school chemistry class. Man, anybody can make explosives like this.
Okay, Willie. You go order some plastic and detonators from Marshall Fields. Everything on this table can be obtained easily from a drugstore, a hardware store, or a medical supply house. If we can get sophisticated equipment, we'll use it, but we don't rely on it. We live off the land. We match technology with spontaneity and improvisation. Men against machines, brains against computers. Now, if you don't think it can work, you check out Algeria, Kenya, Korea, and Vietnam. Can you dig it?
I understand, man. That's cool.
You found out in the country how difficult range estimation is. But in the city, the problem's simplified. A city block is 250 yards north to south, 150 yards east to west. And lampposts are a standard 30 yards.
So we got reference points all over.
Right. And since the buildings act as a funnel for the wind, you can fire on zero windage. Now, run it down to the sniper teams And I'll be in my pad all night if you need me.
Cool, Ted.
Okay.
How's the new job coming along?
It's, all right.
All right. The word's out in the grapevine how much money you're making.
Well, nothing's changed about the gig except the bread.
But I used to know you when you thought making money was obscene. Making a contribution was your thing.
Well, there's no reason why I can't do both.
That's what I used to try to tell you, but you wouldn't listen. Since the war on poverty, all the social workers are making money.
Everyone except Paul.
Now, that's the old dad. But you have changed. Maybe I should have waited.
Too late to talk about that now. You already have a husband.
Yeah. After a fashion. He goes his way, and I go mine. By the way, Dawson's back from California.
Dawes?
Excuse me. Look, excuse me.
Oh,
How you doing?
Okay.
This is Peter Dawson, Anena, Sylvia.
Oh, yeah?
I came down to see you. And we're going to have a drink. Can you get over with us in a bit? Well, if you can, okay? Come on, girls.
Hey, Turk. How come you always offer to pay me like the 50 you owe me when we're about to be stuck up?
Because I'm good to you. Trust me. Hey, listen.
Hey, maybe,
Okay.
What are you having?
Cognac.
So how you been, dummy?
Okay.
George tells me that you were in California?
Yeah, I conducted a 15-week seminar on inner-city riot control.
What's that?
Well, it has to do with the Chicago Police Department's approach to street gangs.
And they sent you?
Oh, better. 5-year warlord of the Apaches.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you, this is an ex-hoodlum turned cop. Here's to old friends rediscovered.
And the new ones.
Tell me about this new job. The next stage of your training program is to learn how to steal. Yes, sir. I know. You're all experts in stealing from your black brothers and sisters. Now you will learn how to steal from the enemy. Remember, a black man with a mop, tray, or broom in his hand can go damn near anywhere in this country. and a smiling black man is invisible. The president of Chicago Edison's collective pipes. Stud, you will rip off the president's pipes while he is in his office. I want to talk to you, Willie. The brothers tell me you write.
Yeah?
Good. We need a propagandist. So you're the Minister of Information. I want you to set up a group and use whoever you want.
Okay. What you want, like some posters, music, poetry?
Anything. Just so long as you talk to the people in the language that they understand.
Well, I know about 6 of the cats I can use. You know, it's a lot of wasted talent, the Cobras.
Good, let's use it. And give me an outline in 2 weeks?
1 week, man. I ain't no problem.
Beautiful. I understand you're still registered at the university.
Well, you know I gotta take a few courses each semester, man. Keep that bread coming from home.
You ever intend to get a degree?
And now what do I need with a status symbol?
That's all it is to you.
For a black man in this country? I mean, now what else is it?
You know how my grandmother learned to read?
No, huh?
Along with me. You remember those reading primers?
Dick and Jane? Yeah.
When I first got into those books, my grandmother used to wait for me to come home from school so she could help me with my reading. And she would follow the whole thing, line for line. And one day, I don't know why, I just read a line wrong. And I realized she couldn't read. And I went into the bathroom and I locked the door. And I cried. And every day after that, I ran home so that my grandmother could help me read. And man, the first time I saw her really read, get your education, boy, she used to say. Because that's the only thing the white man can take away from you. And she was right.
You know, I can't figure you, man.
What's the figure?
I mean, what are you in this for? You want power, you want revenge, you know? What is it?
It's simple, Willie. I just want to be free. How about you?
So do I.
And I hate white folks. Hate white folks? This is not about hate white folks. It's about loving freedom enough to die or kill for it if necessary. Now, you're gonna need more than hate to sustain you when this thing begins. Now, if you feel that way, you're no good to us, and you're no good to yourself. You ever kill a man, Willie?
No.
I have, in Korea. And when you spill a man's guts in the gutter, you see how fast hate disappears, unless you like killing, and I don't think you will. Now, some of the Cobras will. Stud will.
Why Stud?
Because he's a killer. He doesn't know it yet, but he is. I have another job for you, Willie.
What's that?
We need money. So I have a bank job cased. The only thing about it is I can't have the job connected with the Cobras.
How are you gonna do that?
We use Red Beans, Benny Rooster, Paul Monte, JT, Johnny, and Tom. And you lead the team.
All the yellow niggas, right? Look, man, I am tired of that. I am not passing. I am black. Do you hear me, man? Do you understand? I am black. I'm a nigga. You understand me? I was born black. I live black. And I'm gonna die probably because I'm black. Because some cracker that knows I'm black better than you, nigga, is probably gonna put a bullet in the back of my head.
Stick up. Get your hands up. Move. Get on the wall. Move. Get on the wall.
Get up.
Now, move. Get your hands up. Hands up.
Of a southwest Chicago bank. Bank authorities estimate the theft to be in excess of $300,000. The men have been described by eyewitnesses as 6 Caucasian males between the age of 20 to 30. Police warn that these men are armed and dangerous.
Oh, the name is on! Oh, the name is on! I keep calling the name! Get up! Put him up, Malcolm. We play these motherfuckers to 100.
Recruitment and training group ready?
Had their final exams last week.
Transportation set?
They make 2 moves before they reach their final destination. Check for tails along the way. Pick up instructions as they go along.
Logistics?
There'll be $500 in new identification papers waiting for them when they reach the other end. After that, they live off the street.
And when they get there?
Locate and identify a gang like the Cobras. Set up training, a chain of command, organization, and a very tight discipline.
And?
No junk.
Good. I want the men assigned to Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Detroit, New Orleans, and Los Angeles to move out within 10 days.
Man, they got some bad brothers in New Orleans.
You got that right. And stagger the rest of them over the next month. There'll be monthly reports until they make contact and weekly reports after that. Now, if they get busted in a street hassle, they recruit in prison and we replace them. Any questions?
Go, Malcolm.
Go to the basket.
Hey, man. I just got off duty, so I just stopped by this.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Hey, Joy.
Hi, Pete. How are you?
Okay.
How's the family?
Oh, just fine, just fine.
Good.
Hey, Freebie, I think my oldest boy's gonna be an athlete.
Come on.
Oh, yeah, man. You remember that move I used to make coming off the baseline?
Yeah.
Well, he's got it, man. He's got it. The head and shoulder fake and everything. Man, and I didn't teach him that move. You know, I went to the game the other day, and there it was. Reminded me of myself 20 years ago.
I'd like to see that. Next time you go to the game, take me along.
That's a bet.
Okay.
How's Arlene?
Just fine. She's back in school at nights, and she got a master's last year. Now she's going for a PhD.
Any chance of you two getting back together again?
I don't think so. I mean, it's not easy being the wife of a cop.
Say, Hey, Jug's in town. How about us catching a set?
The three of us, like old times?
Hey, I'm sorry, but I have really got to go home.
Boo.
Listen, we'll make it early next week, okay?
Okay. Can't cut her loose, can you?
No. And she knows me too well.
Okay. Have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
For me?
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Talk to you later.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen, let me get this coat on. We go down and maybe we catch 2 sets.
Okay. Then we have a nightcap and a late dinner at the Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll cut out all this fooling around and go see these 2 chicks that I came over to tell you about before I found out the joy was here.
Yes. Splendid. What happens in an underground organization when the first and second in command are either killed or captured? Daddy?
Each man is trained to handle positions 3 steps ahead of him in grade. The operations officer moves up and takes command, and everyone else moves up 2 grades.
Good. Now, we're almost ready.
We ain't no junkies.
From now on, everybody gonna think you are. You put needle marks in your arms and you keep them fresh. And no pig is gonna bust you for the things that we'll be doing as long as you got those tracks.
That's really hip, man. During the daytime, we be nodding. Nighttime, we get out there and do it.
We are gonna get our own. Stop begging for crumbs.
How?
What we got now is a colony. But what we want to create is a new nation. In order to do that, we got to pay a different kind of dues. Freedom dues. Now, according to Mr. Charlie, we have never paid any dues. You dig those plantation movies on television?
Yeah.
No chains, no whips. Bunch of happy darkies just waiting on Master Charlie and his family and digging it.
Like it's fun.
Lordy, Lordy, Lordy. It's Colonel Beauregard come home from the war.
My faithful retainer, George, the war is over, and we lost. You're not a slave anymore, George. You're free.
Free, Master? Is that bad, Master? I gonna die?
You're free, George. You can leave the plantation.
I wanna stay with you.
But I can't pay you, George. The carpetbaggers mortgage the plantation.
Oh, don't let that worry you none. Why, I wouldn't know what to do with no money. And don't let that mortuary thing worry you either. Everything's gonna be all right.
Bless you, George. George, sit down, George.
Master.
You have just played out the American dream.
Yeah.
And now we're going to turn it into a nightmare.
pigs.
Will you open the door?
This one's off duty, lady. Can't you read? Take the next one.
Now, let's see what we got.
Oh, wow, man, what a ripple.
You know this gonna make the headline.
No, it won't hit the papers at all. Might give some other people ideas, but this place will be swarming with CIA and FBI.
We go underground?
No. They'll be looking for everybody except us. You see, this took brains and guts, which we don't have, right?
Right.
Move it out.
Some of the boys is 1-8 for the draft, man. Now, what we gonna do if they get called? Go underground?
Yeah. If they can beat it, they should. But we recruit every non-vet we can get. Right now, I'm trying to recruit Dawson as a double agent.
Turk, you really think we can win?
In guerrilla warfare, the winning is in not losing. When you sleep on the floor, you can't fall out of bed.
Then what we trying to do, man?
Fight Whitey to a standstill. Force him to make a choice between the two things which he seems to dig most of all. There is no way that the United States can police the world and keep us on our ass too unless we cooperate. When we revolt, we reduce it to a simple choice. Whitey finds out he can't make either.
Well, the Cobras is ready. What about the other brothers and sisters out there on the streets?
Their choice is when we start. If they don't follow our program and turn us into the cops, we lose in a week. But if they support us,
yeah,
then it's hit and run, harass and hound, and we can paralyze this country.
Yeah, right. Training done started already in 9 cities. 5 groups is combat ready. Plus us.
Right. And by next summer, we should be able to hit the 10 largest urban complexes in the United States.
She.
Yeah.
Daddy.
Yeah.
Looked like a riot when it started, man. Pigs burned together.
Who?
Shorty Duncan. Yeah. After all the training, looks like the shit's gonna start over a jive-ass pusher.
Where?
Alley behind the pool hall.
Nothing moves till I give the word, right?
Right.
Okay.
cop shot a kid. Looks like it could be trouble.
Don't get involved here.
Gotta go. Don't worry about it.
How things look?
Not good. You're blowing any time.
Anything we can do to help?
Just what you've been doing. Talk to the kids, tell them to cool it. They'll listen to you, Perk.
Hey, Perk, what about the kids?
Everybody's pretty uptight, Dan.
Hey, look, Perk, go down to the drugstore, call up the office, tell the night girl to round up all of the street workers and get them down here quick. And then join me, all right?
You got it, Dan.
What else to do?
Okay. You want to get over the Wait a minute, hold on. Let me go, man. Let me go. Still, wait a minute, Steve. Listen to me, man. What is this going to do, man? You got a wife that's worried about you. You got a job, and if you get busted, you're going to lose it. You want a few people around here with a job to lose. Man, this has got to stop sometime or somewhere. We ain't animals. Come on, y'all just break it on up. Break it on up. Break it on up.
All right, now, come on. Let's start moving it out of here.
Come on, just go home. Come on. Go on home.
Go on in, bro. It's all over.
Looks like it's cooling now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I should be able to pull my men out in another hour. Get those dogs out of here! The captain sent me up here. I'm telling you to get them out. I'm in charge. And you know what these people feel about dogs. And I got more on it. Just move them. Or I'll kill them. I'm gonna have to move back as soon as I can pull all my men out.
Oh, man, it was gonna be all right.
Okay, let's pull it back. Hold it. Yeah, I know. They were on their way home. I have to bring those goddamn dogs in here.
here, Turk.
The boys ready?
Been ready.
Ammo.
Mellow.
Primary and secondary targets.
Check them twice a day.
Weapons.
Oil and ready. Everything ready.
We have to wait.
I mean, what for?
Stark, who is the man?
Well, you the man.
And if they get me?
Do daddy.
And?
Me, Pretty Willie, and so on down the line.
So?
We go when you say go.
Yeah. I'll check you tonight.
Right.
I was just standing out looking.
How long since you've been in bed?
Not since the riot started.
That was 3 nights ago, man.
Yeah, I know. Catnap when I can.
When did the National Guard come in?
Late last night. All white.
I noticed.
Yeah, the people didn't dig it when they woke up this morning and found the troops were here.
What do you think they'll do?
I can't see them trying to fight the army.
They didn't mind fighting the police?
Yeah. I never seen him like that.
Maybe that badge has put distance between you and them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot. The pigs over here and the people over there. And never the twain shall meet, huh? Hey, man, I grew up down here, too. And I know these people. Now, there were some good people out there in the streets the last few nights. Not just hoodlums, like they say in the newspapers.
In a scene like this, anybody can get involved.
But that's only going to make it worse. We have to maintain law and order, or we might as well be back in the jungles.
Dawes, the ghetto is a jungle, always has been. Understand? You cannot cage people like animals and not expect them to fight back someday. It has always been an army occupation here, with police badges and uniforms. Huh? You and me, a cop and a social worker, we are keepers of this goddamn zoo.
The streets have to be safe.
Safe for who? You're here to protect property, not lives.
Well, that's what it's all about, isn't it? You worked hard to get what you got, didn't you? And you want to keep it just like I do?
Bullshit. Listen, you think because you got a badge and I got a couple of degrees, that makes a difference? Do you know what white folks call people like you and me in private? Niggers, Dawes. Niggers.
Hey, hey, hey. Haven't heard you talk like that since we were in college.
Well, I'm sorry, man. Maybe the last 3 nights been a little bit much. I got a board meeting. I got to go reassure the white folks. Let's go get something to eat, okay?
Okay.
Hey, old bean. And you too, baby. This is Uncle Tom, Commander-in-Chief of your Black Freedom Fighters of North America, bringing you the latest news from your fighting black underground. Hang on, brothers and sisters. Liberation is near. In just a few minutes, at precisely 3 o'clock, we will demolish the lavish offices of the mayor of White Chicago. 'Cause we don't have a mayor, even if they do count our votes several times to elect him every 4 years. Remember, brothers, in spite of the lies about an assassination attempt on the mayor, which will appear in the white press, that this time we blew the mayor's office at night when he was at home to announce the beginning of our war of liberation. I dedicate this program to the National Guard, but we're fresh out of hillbilly music. And according to the press and television, the guard spends all his time playing basketball with the kids and helping old ladies cross the street. But we know better, don't we? We know about that 14-year-old girl the trigger-happy guardsmen shot last night, and the people they beat up, and the black businesses they destroyed, don't we? It's almost time. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off. And the mayor's office is now air-conditioned, courtesy of the Black Freedom Fighters of Chicago. And the message is this: pigs and the National Guard have to go immediately, if not sooner. If they have left by midnight Sunday, we will kick them out. Whitey, go home. We don't want you in our neighborhood either, and we will control our nation.
We will leave when things are back to normal, with them at the bottom and us at the top.
Colonel Evans, would you care to comment on charges of brutality by the Guard?
If they obeyed the law, we wouldn't be here. They'll get what they ask for. But there has been no brutality by the Guard.
Colonel, what about the threats by the freedom fighters that kicked the Guard out of the neighborhood?
They said midnight tonight. It is now 12:30, which tells us exactly what we think of their threats. It's also time to put an end to this conference. I have a report to work on. Good night and thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Hold it right there. All right, you just killed your last white man. He died. My people attack. You don't scare me none, you snaky Indian.
First black colonel.
The Black Sambo.
Rerun. Yeah. How you like that? You like that, though?
Yeah.
Colonel. Always wanted to be like that, didn't you?
Coffee, tea, or milk? Poison? You're gonna kill me?
No, soul brother. Just a little acid. Going on a little trip. Hold it. Hold it.
just met the most marvelous bunch of niggers. the most marvelous bunch.
You get him?
Shit.
We need 2 people over in this area, please. Hurry.
Due to increased fighting in Chicago, the president has ordered a brigade from the 82nd Airborne into the war-torn South Side to reinforce the beleaguered National Guard under heavy attack by black guerrillas since late last week. This is Pat Fennell, Chicago.
You've been here since the beginning, Carstairs. How does it look to you?
General, it couldn't be worse.
We have elite troops out here now against untrained black fanatics. The whole thing should be over before the weekend.
Those troops are facing a highly trained underground guerrilla army. They have military weapons and they know how to use them. The commander of those elite troops insists he can put this thing down within a few days.
You disagree?
Yes, sir, I do. They're a first-class fighting unit.
You've prepared an options book.
Yes, sir.
And?
We have 3. Root them out one by one, starve them out by siege, total evacuation of the black population.
Evacuation?
Now, the first is too costly in lives and equipment. Neither evacuation nor siege would work.
Why not?
General, we sealed off the ghetto for 3 days last week. It paralyzed the city.
Paralyzed Chicago?
Chicago is more dependent on black labor than one would think. 90% of the garbage collectors are colored. 60% of the hospital workers are colored. 60% of the bus drivers and 80% of the postal workers. So although the detention camps occurring under the 1950 Subversion Act are ready, we can't put them to immediate use.
Your recommendation?
We can end it alone, sir.
Yes?
The Russians obviously have a top agitprop man here. Find him, destroy him, and you have disorganized, ignorant Negroes to deal with.
Cut off the head and the snake dies.
Exactly.
All right, Carstairs, get right on it. I'm going back to Washington. Get back to me by tomorrow noon. Honey, I'm going back to Washington. Why don't you amuse yourself here for a few days? A little shopping. Be back Sunday, huh?
Sure, baby. We can find something to do in Chicago.
But how'd you know how to find me?
I looked in the phone book.
Yeah, well, you look great. But what are you doing in Chicago?
I'm here with my sponsor. I'm not hustling anymore. Got me a steady scene. You're a little bit, freakish, like black skin. But the money's good. Got me some property. You know him.
I do?
Yeah. You used to work for him. You know you his nigger? All the time he'd be saying if all of us niggers was like you, wouldn't be no trouble. First, I thought he was talking about somebody else.
So?
So they had to get Uncle Tom.
Well, what makes you think I know anything about Uncle Tom?
I'm not saying you do, but you know Chicago and I don't.
Yeah, but what am I supposed to do?
Warn him. Tell him they have to kick ass and they ain't playing.
One thing. Why are you sticking your neck out?
I'm black, ain't I?
Yeah. Yeah, you are, baby. Who's in charge?
Carstairs.
What are they up to?
They plan to get inside, find out who this Uncle Tom is, and kill him.
Cut off their head, and the snake dies. Do they know who Uncle Tom is?
They think he's some guy from Russia.
They would.
You want me to see what else I can find out?
No. Wait a minute. Two can play at this infiltration game. Find out all you can, but don't pry. I'll have somebody contact you in Washington. Baby, be very careful. And don't contact me again unless I get to Washington.
What's this wall, hunky?
And why should you feel threatened by the freedom fighters?
Because I am, and you are too.
How?
You know how. Look, all the progress we've made over the last few years will be wiped out if this thing isn't stopped soon. I heard even your foundation is on its way out.
Well, no. They decided to increase the budget and the staff.
Yeah? Well, my husband was dismissed from the hospital. And he was the first and only Negro on a white hospital staff in the city.
Well, what is the connection between your husband and the freedom fighters?
Dan, that is the whole point. Innocent and decent people are suffering because of niggas who know nothing but hate and revenge.
And it's all the niggas' fault, right?
Look, don't romanticize those people, Dan. They're not beautiful.
Only by contrast.
Dan, those freedom fighters are murderers.
Hey, listen. It didn't figure to be long before those niggas realized that you don't have no wind throwing a brick at somebody with a gun.
Dan, whose side are you on?
Your side. We're in the same bag. Making the best of a bad scene.
I think he's mixed up with those black freedom fighters.
Dad, you gotta be kidding.
I am sure of it. We were talking and he just, for a minute, he was like he used to be.
Yeah. He was something else when he was in college. And that was before all this became fashionable.
He was defending those animals. Then he caught himself. And he said all the right things, but it just wasn't him. It just wasn't the man I know.
The perfect source for intelligence. Gig takes them all over the ghetto. I'll check it out.
Pete, I am doing the right thing.
Come on. Just put your coat down right there.
What is this, Dawes?
Come on, Uncle Tom. Come on!
Uncle what?
Uncle Tom, up against the wall. Come on, against the wall. Spread your feet out. Come on.
Hey, easy. What is this? Some kind of joke, man?
Yeah, that's a joke. The joke is on me. I've been looking all over for Uncle Tom, and here you are under my nose. Cool Dan Freeman. Only digging sports cars and bread, good clothes and chicks. Beautiful cover, man.
And when I think about it, I mean, really think about it. Now, would I risk all of this for that?
Yeah, well, I don't have to worry about that, man. I got enough evidence to take you in, and that's what I'm going to do.
What evidence?
Oh, them tapes, man. Them Uncle Tom propaganda tapes that you cats spread around the ghetto. Well, I listened to them over and over again. And it's you, Dan. It's your voice.
You gotta be crazy.
Well, we'll see if a voice print proves whether I'm crazy or not.
Now what?
Now what? Well, the scene is over. Well, one thing. Are you working with the communists like they say? Who's behind you?
How come there gotta be somebody behind me?
Oh, come on, man. Don't put me on. No. The FBI says it's the most sophisticated underground movement in the Western Hemisphere. The work of an expert.
And expertise is white man's monopoly, right, Dawes? Well, I am an expert. I spent 5 years flunkying to become an expert.
This gun makes me an expert.
You're a big man with that gun and that badge. You know, Dawes, you want to have it both ways. You want a pat on your head from Whitey, and you want to love and respect your people. But you can't be with your people without betraying that badge. And you can't be a cop without betraying your people, you hypocrite.
You think nobody else feels the way you do? You think you're the only nigger with the sense of an outrage?
Well, then hit back. Join us. We can use you. We got undercover people on the force.
On the force?
That's right. But
who?
Nobody with your rank. Come on, join us, Tom.
And you're using kids.
Who else am I going to involve? People like you and me? The kids are our only hope. And I got to them before they got jailed or killed or turned into Dawsons. And now they'll do anything to be free.
Who said you were free, man?
Well, Dawes, even on the wrong end of your gun, I'm a lot freer than you are.
It's Dawson.
Hey, man. Dawson's your main man. You know, that would be like me killing Daddy.
Yeah. And maybe one day you'll have to kill Daddy. Or him, you. You think we're playing games, killing white strangers? There are a lot of Dawsons out there. And some of them will try to stop us. But anybody gets between us and freedom has got to go. Now, that's anybody. You got the airborne out there now. If 40% of those troops are black, maybe they'll help us, and maybe they won't. But in the meantime, if you hesitate with any one of them because he's black, just once, you be one dead cobra. Now, if you ain't ready to pay them kind of dues, now you get out and go back to doing nothing, but don't tell me who I killed and what it cost me to do it. Now get him out of here. Get him out.
Right,
It is now condition red. All fighters in the field. You alert our groups everywhere. And remember, don't quit until you either win or you die.
Outbreak in the black section of Oakland brings to a total of 8 the number of uprisings by black guerrillas in cities across the nation. The president has declared a state of national emergency.
Woo! Okay, we're back. Thank you, everyone. That was the Spook Who Sat by the Door that you just joined us to watch. And now Monica and I are back to talk about it with you. So what did you get from it this time, Monica? This is like the third time we watched this together. Ooh. One sec. I think your audio is not, it's not working. 1 second. Can you try talking again? No. What the hell? Hold on. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, that's what happened. Okay, try again.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No?
I couldn't hear what you said. Can you try one more time?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's good. Cool. Yes. Sorry. What did you say?
No, I mean, I just really appreciate this movie in so many ways. And my son, I think this is the second time he's watching it with me, and I watched this movie a lot. I wish it would have been introduced in my life. But I think just in summary, the purpose of organizing, right? And why it's critical to our people, as well as like everybody's role in the revolution is really important at different levels. But no matter what, it was like all focused on together. So everybody's had a role. I just really appreciated it and watching it with my son again.
Can you? I'm not sure if it's me, but I hear like a lot of feedback when you're talking. Am I clear for the folks that are watching? I'm trying to see if it's like the setup or if it's like your mic.
I unplugged my computer. Maybe that might be better now.
No, it's like a weird like flapping sound, but I don't hear it when I'm talking, so I can't tell. Yeah, so I'm clear, but your audio has like there's a weird background noise. Do you have like a headset or something?
I don't. Wait. I do. I got a kid who has headsets. Hold on.
We're just gonna get Monica's audio resolved. Gonna get that headset from Avery. But yeah, I agree. I can't remember how I heard about this movie. I think it was like recommended to me like by a movement elder. But the first time I watched it, I was like so amazed because I'd never seen a movie that had politics like this. And I still to this day cannot believe it's been made. It's kind of been like memory hold, which is why like even if you buy the DVD, it's like the same quality as on YouTube because it's never been remastered. It's never been made into like HD. Like the only copy of it exists is like the one that existed in the 70s that was been digitized, but not like improved. And because they don't want people to watch this movie. Better?
Can you hear me better?
Oh no, what is that? Yeah, I'm not sure why you specifically are having problems. Well, y'all, I think we might just have to deal with it because
it's okay. Why don't you could go ahead and sit, and I'll just be here listening.
I want to talk. Okay, so yeah, things that stood out to me this past time, the light-skinned woman, African woman, snitching on him, and she talks to Dawson, and she's like, "I'm doing the right thing, right?" Like she's having doubts, but it's like really interesting. The class analysis in this movie is really strong. It's one of like the strongest aspects of the commentary, and so like there's all these different characters who, if you were to talk to them, they would believe themselves to be aligned with the liberation struggle of African people, but who take actions that directly undermine it. So that lady is very, very invested in the system that's exploiting her people. And you can kind of tell she's like internalized the belief that the African people in the hood are suffering because of something that's wrong with them. And so, you know, when they fight back, when they resist, when they engage in like more elevated forms of revolutionary organization, she gets like scared because her investment is not in them improving their conditions or in her people at all. It's in the system that gave her that good job, that, you know, gave her her position in society, that gave her access to like, you know, marrying up or whatever. So it's just very interesting. And I feel like the class commentary in this movie is accurate to this day. And I feel like a lot of the people who are held up as leaders for us or, you know, who we consider to be for our people have the mindset that she does. I feel like people who are like Freeman are very, very rare. Super rare. How you doing, Monica?
I'm here. I don't know if it's better. I tried a different set of headphones.
No, it's still there, but I feel like it's fine. Like I can understand what you're saying. So, you know.
Okay. Thank y'all for your patience. My audio's messing up over here, and that's okay because we can still keep moving. Thank you, Onya Sabu, for that class analysis. I saw that also being dropped in the comments as well. I was like, no, why she go do that? And not surprised at the same time because like where she was at, you know, in the world because of that bootstrap mentality, you know, blaming people for their oppression, blaming people for their poverty, and not having the analysis of why our people are fighting for their freedom was really relevant. And then appreciate how comrades in the chat pointed out how, and I don't recall her name, but she was a sex worker in this space, how her lens was very different. Her lens was like, I appreciated Freeman pointing out to her like her own self, her own inner beauty, like not having to have a, you know, colonial hair, and, you know, just being able to just have those discussions, you know, with her. And what did she choose? She's choosing the role of being on the side of a freedom fighter versus choosing like individualism and thinking about herself. Like she could have easily turned him in because she knew like he was the head person, but she didn't take that route.
Absolutely. I also appreciated how he engaged her because I feel like a lot of times, especially like narrow nationalists who have not worked on the patriarchy, will denigrate women like the homie queen. That's how she's credited, but the sex worker who supported the revolution because she was working class, because she was the people of the masses who were like directly impacted, because she understood that the liberation of African people has to happen on a collective basis. She had the analysis that the petty B lady didn't have. But a lot of times, people like that woman get disrespected. The way that he engaged her, like he was purchasing her services as a prostitute, but he treated her with respect. Even when he was talking to her about, you know, wearing her natural hair and like how beautiful she was and how she looked like an African queen, he wasn't like denigrating her. Like I've heard people talk about, you know, African women wearing weave or like relaxing their hair or like wearing makeup or like long nails, and they're like I saw, oh my god, like this African in the Nation of Islam posted, it was like a meme that had like Cardi B at the top and then like a dumpster being like what conscious men see when they look at Cardi B, and it's like a dumpster, and I'm like, that's revolutionary? Like, you think it's the radical political line? Like, you think that comparing women to garbage because they have like a particular presentation is a revolutionary position? That's wild. I feel like the fundamental display of respect for her as a person that Freeman showed is like under discussed. And I feel like a lot of times people think that if they're coming from what they believe to be a radical position in terms of embracing African identity and culture, they think that they can talk to people, particularly women, any kind of way. And it's just not the case. It's kind of why a lot of women get turned away at the gate. So yeah, I just really appreciate that character. Also the way she was treated. It was like never that she was less than. She was never disrespected on screen. Her contribution was made clear. And I think that's an important lesson for how we should engage, even with our people who we think are not quite there yet in terms of like their hair and whatnot. Another thing that stood out to me was I feel like they condensed like a lot of revolutionary organizing into like a very, like it's a 90-minute movie, so they couldn't show like how it would actually take like years to build up that kind of infrastructure of like the cells in different places, militarily trained, but also politically educated and ready to go at the moment, you know, when they were given the signal. It was like accelerated because the uprising started in Chicago and they were like, now. But they had that foundation of organization first. And it really struck me because we don't focus on that kind of like long-term building, because like the mobilization strategy is more, it appeals to people more. Like we want to be out, we want to express our frustration, our rage, our dissatisfaction, but like the long-term systematic organizing, like recruiting, consciousness raising, training that is not exciting, that is not sexy, does not happen. I don't know that we have understood the need for that kind of strategy in order to take advantage of the moments of mobilization. But what do you think about that, Monica?
No, I really appreciate that. You know, part of white supremacy culture is also the sense of urgency, like needing to act now and being understand like when the time is right to act, right? Because then the whole plan could fall apart. And there's also a sense of urgency because our people are suffering. Our people are struggling deeply at every level through imperialism, through capitalism. And so I definitely understand that. And just all that goes into it, right? Like what you talked about, like you just can't be trained in militarization or like in for like the revolution, fighting for the revolution, I should say. I'm using the wrong words, but fighting for combat, I should say, better. Like you have to understand the why. And if you don't understand the why, you can't sell out your people, right? So like, why are we in armed struggle for our people? Like just doing arms isn't gonna get us to where we need. So all the different layers that occur to get us or to get organized to where we saw in the film is really critical. So I agree with what you're sharing.
And he also, like, throughout the movie, Freeman works really hard to challenge people and like struggle with them over that like quick fix or like adventurous tendency. There's like the scene with a very, very light skinned, like white passing African where the dude's like, I hate white people, I want to kill them. And Freeman's like, no, that's not why we're here. Like, it doesn't matter how you feel about them. It's about our people. It's about fighting for our liberation. It can't just be about hating them. There's another part. And then he's like talking about how he's ready to like kill people. And Freeman's like, are you a killer? Like just constantly throughout the movie, Freeman is impressing upon them the necessity of like clarity, of having a clear strategy, of having a clear understanding of what they're trying to achieve, and also of having that political education, that ideological foundation, that understanding of our people as colonized, the understanding of the causes of our oppression being systemic, the understanding of like the how we are going to defeat it is through like long-term systematic revolutionary organizing. So yeah, just like the messaging was like, you can tell that revolutionary African people, Pan-Africanist socialists were involved in the making of this movie, because it's very, very clear that they're not saying, okay, pick up a gun and start whaling. They're saying like, no, we got to go low and build long-term, in order to win this. We have to actually organize our people, and we can't be focused on the stuff that like looks good, gives us clout, or is like sexy. We have to be focused on like actually building the foundation that's going to help us be victorious. So yeah. Oh yeah, and then the other thing that he was really good at, that I thought was amazing, is like building the structure so that the success or defeat of the movement was not dependent on just him. Like at the end, he gets shot, and it's not clear if he lives. He's mortally wounded, but they had already talked about earlier in the movie. Okay, so what happens if this person in charge of the cell dies? They're like, everybody else moves up. They built a structure where it doesn't matter if one person is gone, that the entire thing can keep going. And it made me think about the PIGC in Guinea-Bissau, which we talked about many, many times on the channel, where Amilcar Cabral was actually assassinated a year before the struggle ended. And the PIGC went on to defeat Portugal and NATO anyway, because even though he was a foundational member, he like started the whole organization alongside a couple of other comrades. The whole thing was not dependent on them. They were focused on developing revolutionary cadre so that if one leader fell, there would be 10,000 more, 100,000 more to replace that one leader. And that's like the kind of movement that we need to build. Like Freeman is important, Castro is important, Malcolm X is important, Ho Chi Minh is important, but none of them could have done that single-handedly. They built the long-term organization and structure collectively in order to wage those revolutionary struggles. Those people made their contribution, but it wasn't just them. It was the masses of people.
Yeah, I appreciated that because it's very clear that everybody's a leader, and like no matter what, you are a leader, and that's like real learning for us to learn that, because we're so used to the one dot leadership versus like collective leadership, and that the movie really really shared that. What's interesting to me too is like I appreciated Freeman being able to learn the things that he learned in the CIA and make it applicable to building an organization, fighting for revolution, fighting for freedom. And one thing that was really interesting is when you were talking about like he was so patient. He was so patient with his people, knowing that we were colonized, right? And how he's having those conversations with different people throughout throughout the film, right? So I really appreciated that because it takes a lot and a while that we're always to decolonize, right? Because we're so conditioned. So I really appreciate like the writer, the acting, and attention to like really clear detail to understand like the person who was like, you know, one really being like he's angry, he's mad, and he hates white people, and how Freeman's talking about how that's not enough. You gotta like have love for your people to fight, and being able to see like your skin, you're still African, right? Even though you may walk in the world and people may see you as European, there's ways that you can utilize that, right? But his whole life probably really saw that, really had to deal with that internalized oppression and really disliking like the color of his skin, and even though it didn't show it, but Freeman like helps that to come alive, to like appreciate you who you are, right? And how you can still make a contribution in so many ways, and how you can use that privilege like in certain spaces. So I really appreciated that attention to detail in those different spaces.
For sure. Sorry, go ahead.
No, the only thought I had as I was watching the movie this time was like our people come with already strategies and tactics to organize. And so one thing I was reflecting on this time, it was like that didn't like necessarily show in the film, that like we come with that already, because it was really elevated around how like the CIA tools were utilized to organize like this revolutionary space. And so it was just interesting to me. That was just a thought. And I know that wasn't the intent of the movie, but it was just a reflection I was having. I was like thinking about our people organizing, you know, in Africa when they were being kidnapped on the ships. Also what happened in the Haitian Revolution, like even Cuba in the Cuban Revolution. So I was just thinking and reflecting about how like there's so much more to our history of fighting for our people, and it's not just the tactics that were elevated from the CIA. So it's just a thought I had.
Yeah, there was something you said that I wanted to. I lost my train of thought. CIA, human. Oh yeah. Well, with the CIA thing, it's interesting because someone made a comment about the movie Black Panther, which I did not care for. I hate that movie. It made me very angry. But in that movie, the guy from The Hobbit, Martin Freeman, plays a CIA agent who is allowed into like the inner sanctum of Wakanda, sees like all their secrets, and then at the end, he helps save the day by killing a bunch of African people from like a fighter jet. So people, when that movie came out, like a lot of folks like didn't question it because it was like a lot of like positive representation of African people within like an isolationist monarchy, and so people were like, okay, that's a small, it's whatever, and they just like focused on that. But a lot of other folks were just like, what the hell? Like, why would the CIA agent be a good guy in this movie when the CIA has this legacy in Africa of like overthrowing governments, of assassinating leaders, of infiltrating movements, and like, and also in the United States as well. So like the people who questioned that were correct. And it's interesting because now we live in a time where the CIA, even the FBI that like straight up murdered Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, so many revolutionary African leaders has been rehabilitated. Police are increasingly rehabilitated, and also they've been like integrated. There's like African people all up in those structures. And when we hear about a new African person making it to that position, whether it was like Lloyd Austin becoming the first African head of the Department of Defense, there's also Ketanji Brown Jackson joining the U.S. Supreme Court, there's Kamala Harris becoming vice president, there's Barack Obama becoming president. It used to be that we would look at those positions and be like, that's not for us. This country is our enemy, and we would understand that clearly. And now in 2022, we see the first African Supreme Court Justice or the first African leader of the Department of Defense, and we're like, yeah, good for them. Nice. And then if someone's like, they got there by killing African people or like locking up African people, they're like hater. Like, it's just very like, we used to have clarity on what these institutions were, and now we get excited when we see African people within them. And those African people are like not Martin Freeman. They're sellouts, they're coons. They got to that point by like stepping on African people's faces, on our corpses, and they're proud of it. They're proud of it. And they have no intention whatsoever of using those positions to advance us collectively. And they're still celebrated. And a lot of times people will like lie to themselves. Our people will lie to themselves and be like, oh, they're going to change it from the inside. They're just like waiting for their moment. And then they're going to be hella radical and be for African people. And I'm like, they would never have been considered for the position had that been the case. So yeah, it shows you how far we've fallen in terms of like our collective consciousness, because we've been intentionally misdirected and confused for a really long time. The revolutionary movement has been kind of weakened from attacks for a very long time. And so the consequence is our people celebrate, our enemies diversifying. And yeah,
that integration and diversity is just like, that representation is so heavily immersed, and it's always celebrated, even during African History Month, the first, that's all you hear. And I just saw something this week. I don't know the name of her, but she's like the first team something in the NFL, and she's African. It's like something really high up there. Somebody might know, drop it in the chat, drop it in the comments. And it's like, and when we think about it, the whole disrupting the NFL that occurred, right? And then of like, why taking a knee, and what does that flag represent, and what does that song represent? Like, nothing but violence to our people and indigenous people and Chicano people as well, colonized folks in the United States. And now it's like, now this person's being elevated, like the first African female something in the NFL. It's like pretty prestigious, right? And what is it about? Like neocolonialism, money, representation, money, right? And so that's what's being said and being talked about. That's the buzz, right? It's not talked about, like all the other essences aren't being talked about, but just like her being celebrated. I was like, that's whack. That's not going to help our people. Oh, she's the president of the Raiders. Thank you so much, comrade. President of the Raiders.
Good Lord. That's weird, because ever since I found out that they get permanent brain damage, what's it called, CTE, when I read about that and how it's just like a common thing and it happens like most football players, and most football players in U.S. football are African men, and it's just like accepted that their brains are gonna get destroyed and no one's like doing anything. I was just like, what the hell? It's just and then when Colin Kaepernick took a knee and the whole organization united to get him the fuck up out of there and demonize him, and he still doesn't have his job back, but the NFL is working with the Jay-Z type of Black Lives Matter. That's wild. It's raggedy. It's really weird. But that's an example, right? That our people, it's an institution that our people celebrate, that we watch. There was like a hot second where people were trying to boycott and then they just kind of forgot. And yeah, it's just, I feel like we get stomped on by these institutions and then they make token attempts to diversify and we're like, yeah, this is a win. And then we keep getting stomped on. But another thing I wanted to talk about was someone just posted this quote in the YouTube chat. It's from Freeman, where he says, "There's no way the United States can police the world and keep us on our ass too unless we cooperate." I feel like that is really, really important to talk about for a second. So at the Garden, when we had our first in-person convening of Southwest chapter this past weekend, we talked about at the Garden AFRICOM and the U.S. reinvasion of Somalia that happened like a month ago. The U.S. redeployed troops to Somalia, and we were talking about how we as African people living in the belly of the beast can organize, like what strategies can we use to resist AFRICOM domestically as African people are fighting it on the continent. And that was like a point I made towards the end, that like we've had like, last the summer of 2020, where we had biggest in history mobilizations against police terrorism that got very easily misdirected back to the Democratic Party. We had the summer of like 2016 or 2014, 2016, where there were like mass mobilizations against police terrorism and also against Donald Trump. So we have these points in history where the masses of people take to the streets spontaneously within the United States and are able to shut down commerce, shut down highways, provoke a massive state response in an attempt to like put it down, because the impact of these spontaneous mass mobilizations, even though they don't last that long, is extremely internally destabilizing for the United States. That's why Joe Biden was talking about giving $30 billion more money to the police and why we need more police, not to fund them. That's why they're giving police surplus military equipment. That's why police budgets are going up all over the country, because it does actually have a huge impact when there are thousands of people in the streets shutting shit down. The problem is that it happens spontaneously and it fizzles out quite quickly. Or even if it doesn't fizzle out, there is no broader strategy guiding revolutionary ideology to keep folks focused, to keep the eye on the prize. And so what happened last summer, first we went from abolish the police to defund the police to voting for a cop and a straight up white supremacist in the span of like a 3-month period, because the forces that were the most organized during those mobilizations for George Floyd were the Democratic Party, was the nonprofit industrial complex, and that's where the direction they pointed people into. So we have to recognize the strength of mobilization in these numbers, but in order to sustain it long term, in order to make sure that it's not co-opted into voting or into supporting things that are going to be even worse for us, we have to have that political education and that foundation of building revolutionary organizations. And if we have that, if we're like shutting down airports, shutting down highways, shutting down ports, shutting down trucking lanes with revolutionary political education and long-term organization to sustain that beyond a few days, we could do a lot to grind the capacity of the U.S. empire to a halt, and the capacity of the U.S. empire to attack Africa and to attack other places in the world to a halt. We could do it. What he's saying is true. We can keep them so occupied dealing with us that they cannot mess with Somalia, mess with Rwanda, mess with the Congo. Like, we could grind it to a halt. We just always get, like, we get upset. We get mad. We take the streets. We go home. Something else happens. We get upset. We get mad. We take the streets. We go home. It's not sustained, but it's possible. Do you think that's true, Monica?
Yeah. I think it's so critical that we sustain it, because the last political education that we were doing around the uprisings, so it talked about the uprisings, but like more people have been murdered since the uprisings by police. And so why it's so critical that we sustain it and we're organizing, because it's not changing. Like Juneteenth being a national holiday does not free our people, does not change that police kill and shoot someone. What it was, it said something like there's only 15 days out of the year where the police is not murdering someone. Like, that shit is not acceptable. Like, look at what's happening in the prison system. Look what's happening in our healthcare system. What's happening right now during the pandemic. How so many people can't afford rent and they're being displaced. Like, who does that impact the most? It impacts our people. It impacts colonized people. And so we have to sustain, like, the movement by people joining organizations. Marching in the street, protesting is only one tactic, right? But the long-term strategy is liberation. We can't get liberation by just marching in the street. We can't definitely vote our way to liberation. That is not real at all. And people have been conditioned to buy in to this party system, like Democrats are Republicans, and like the Democrats are for us and Republicans aren't. No, they're the same system that does not care. They don't care. No way whatsoever. It doesn't matter. There are never ever bills that focus for the holistic needs of our people. That's why we don't have universal health care. That's not even a hard argument that everyone should have access to health care. Like, if they can't even pass that, what makes you think that they give a shit about us? Like, they can't even pass that because those insurance companies, those corporations make billions of dollars off the suffering of people, right? They don't want everyone to have universal health care. So yeah, we have to organize. And the other thing is, because we have to organize ourselves, we've always been fighting for ourselves. We've always been working for our freedom because they don't want that. Why would a system as is that benefits from our exploitation, from our suffering, to change? They don't at all. And so we have the right to be involved in organizations to organize. Because if not, I don't know how long we can make it, y'all.
Yes, and then there's some good comments in the chat, so I just want to go back and read some of these. Ironic Mind State says, Lenin been said the fetish of spontaneity ain't sustainable. Comrade Nwadi says they do war crimes on the protesters in the U.S. They can do war crimes all around the world. Daniel O'Donnell says, for us all, the art cinema is the most important. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, and then Rashad says the spontaneous mobilizations are predictable and unorganized. No creativity or precision in our currently mobilized protest structure. Yeah, like they know the strategies we use a lot of times. And then Daniel says logistics is so key, a choke point where we can shut down the capitalist economy and shut down the supply chain of the imperialists. We need more communist revolutionaries to take jobs and organize co-workers in the logistics and transportation industries, port truckers, longshore workers, warehouse workers, airline workers. And the extremely interesting thing is that, like, for example, the majority of Amazon's workforce in the United States is African and colonized people, is our people. The dock workers in Oakland, in Maryland, in a number of places throughout the United States are mostly African people. Like truckers, the people like getting CDLs right now to like replenish the workforce of truckers, a lot of them are African people. So we're in all of these strategic industries, but they're not yet organized, and specifically organized with like revolutionary anti-imperialist analysis. A really good example of the potential of organizing our people in these strategic points is the dock workers. The dock workers in Oakland have a very, very long and prestigious union, or old and prestigious union. I think it's ILWU. But so they constantly organize to improve their condition as workers, but that union has connections to the movement, to anti-imperialist organizing. So, for example, there were Israeli weapons coming to that port. The dock workers who were already organized, their union refused to unload the ships that contain those weapons. When the Black Lives Matter uprisings were happening, not in 2020, but in like 2014 and around that time, they shut down the port for those mobilizations, for that organization. Like, can you imagine if we had all of these strategic industries unionized, like Amazon warehouse workers, truckers, alongside the longshoremen, alongside the dock workers, and we want to be like, hey, United States, stop sending weapons to Eastern Europe into the hands of Nazis. And they were like, unless you listen to us, we're shutting all it down. Like, not a truck will drive, not a port, not a single ship will be unloaded at the dock. Amazon, like, not a package will be packed. Like, we could do it. And it makes you think about the flight attendants during the height of COVID, where they were like, we're not going to work. We are going to ground these flights unless you give us what they want. And they had it within like 3 days. Like, my God, like, it shows you the potential. Like, we're already in all of these places. We just need the organization and the consciousness, the analysis, the political education to develop that revolutionary, anti-imperialist, and socialist lens. So clearly it's possible. And like, there's an Amazon facility just outside of Albuquerque. They're in like so many places where our people are.
No, man, Onyesawu, thanks for dropping that knowledge. I appreciate that, like that huge like context and analysis, because even in Spook by the Door, they're like, we can't shut down the hood. We can't shut it down again because, you know, believe it or not, there's 60% of this, 60% of that, 60% of that. And it, like bus drivers, different things. And it's like, our labor is exploited and used to keep the economic system running in this country. And so being able to have all those spaces and entities organizing, and then folks being able to learn from one another of why and the reasons why they're like, no, we're not going to unload these weapons. And so that's really powerful. And if we could get that happening all over the country, man, so much.
Yeah, like the strategy that they are talking about in this movie, I think is a strategy that we should study. Like, we have like think like what it would actually take, right? Like the long-term organizing, we have to recognize the fact that it would take years. So that, first of all, and it's a movie, that's why we're shortened. But we have to study that strategy, because what he said is so important for us to understand. Like, we as people living in the belly of the beast, as African and oppressed and colonized people, we have to play our position. We have to understand our struggle as connected to the global struggle against this same enemy that's destroying the planet, that's causing us to suffer, that's denying us healthcare, that's arming the police that are killing us. It's the same enemy, you know, opening up military bases in Africa and drone bombing weapons, you know, drone bombing schools and hospitals throughout the Middle East, you know, overthrowing governments and trying to like recolonize China in Eurasia. It's the same enemy we are facing inside the United States, and our people are facing outside the United States. And so we have to understand that it's one war against one enemy with many different fronts. We are on that domestic front. We have to play our position. And our position is making it so difficult for them to deal with us that they cannot do anything to the rest of the world, to like wrap them up in trying to repress us. And if we continue with the spontaneous mobilization, with the strategies they already know, and they already know how to counter, we are not going to keep them occupied enough to make any kind of difference for our family outside of the U.S. borders. But it shows we know that we can do this. We know that we can do this. We just have to think more strategically about what those choke points actually are. Where are the places that need to be organized? What are the strategic populations that need to be reached in order to actually achieve this long-term eternal destabilization of the United States? Like, we can so do it. I think about it all the time. I think about how when I was in Black Lives Matter Portland, we learned about Wells Fargo investing in private prisons. And so we were like, we're gonna blockade Wells Fargo. I made it. And so we organized this extremely intricate direct action with like all these roles where we shut down all of the traffic around Wells Fargo so the police couldn't come get us. We shut down all of the buses and all of the trains, and then we posted up outside of Wells Fargo with like 100 people, just like telling people what was happening. And our demand was like, stop investing in private prisons. But because we held that blockade for like 6 hours and not like 3 weeks, there was no chance that we were going to get that demand. It wasn't going to happen. We had told a lot of people about it. You know, people learned what was going on, but it was that demand was not feasible with that kind of strategy. But if we could, and no one got arrested or even hurt. So if we could organize effectively to hold that location and shut down all those things for 6 hours, what do we need to do? How do we need to level up our strategy in order to hold something like that for 3 weeks, 3 months, a year? I feel like these are the questions we need to start asking ourselves. Like, how do we actually shut shit down with a much, much longer timeline? Because it's possible, again, if we think about what are the choke points, what are the strategic industries, who do we need to move? Who do we need to like get active? So yeah, this porn bot. Sorry, someone's in the chat. Okay, yeah. So what do you think about that, Monica? What are some ways that we can like start to build that kind of long-term disruption?
And I love that. I think about lots of different things. So if we had one thing I think about Tiwa territory is there are several grassroots organizations on the ground, right? That are about socialism and revolutionary work. So if we were able to come together collectively, which we often do, come together on a lot of different issues and make a plan of what we want to do, what we want to tackle. And after we are able to make that plan, what are we doing in the community to organize other folks doing political education and getting other folks involved? And then so I think about, let's just say, this isn't very specific to what you said, but here in Tiwa territory, the police continue to displace people who are unsheltered. And so there are different organizations that are on the ground when they hear that a camp is about to be moved, right? These are people who are just living, who people on the ground have built relationships with. These are our unsheltered neighbors. And maybe for 3 days, there's community defense on the ground, right? Where there's somebody there, always there for 3 days. And then after that, people don't have capacity anymore. And then that camp is moved, is displaced, all their items thrown away, more traumatization that happens. And it's also a slow genocide. Like every time people are uprooted and moved, many factors involve health, the trauma of people who are they're dying, right? They're being murdered because of this displacement. So I just think about what the long-term strategy could be to dream to, okay, how can we take over property, right? How can we organize them to be, how can we organize with them, to be involved in building it together? So I mean, it's feasible, it's doable, it's happening. There's thousands of people of this city and not enough of us are being involved. So let's say there's 500 people who are involved in organizing. We need 50 more times of people involved in organizing. And so sometimes people aren't able to be involved because they don't know, or how are we educating them, how are we sharing political education with them when marches and protests are happening? Because people come out to those. Mm-hmm. People come out in numbers. The Roe versus Wade had already 3 protests. And from what I hear, they had thousands of people there, right? How are those spaces also leveraged, providing political education for folks to get involved and connecting reproductive justice to everything? Because that's connected to environmental justice. That's creating communities of care. And so I think that lots of things can happen as a collective. Like we know a lot, and us coming together, we're stronger. So those are just some of my thoughts right off the head.
I think those are really, really good examples because we know, like, as the rent keeps going up, there's going to be more people living in the parks. And I also feel like a lot of people don't understand that, like, most of us are like one check away from having to live outside. Like, it's getting rough and it's not getting better, and the rents are continuing to rise. So first, people understanding that they are closer to the folks living in the park than they are to, celebrities or politicians, but also helping people to understand that unless we respond, if we need to find a way to organize, to respond, to stop the sweeps, and also to address the housing crisis. And if we don't do that, it doesn't matter how you vote. It doesn't matter who is in there. This is the trajectory of the capitalist system. It's not built upon making sure that people have their needs met and are housed. Like, housing is not a human right under capitalism. Being able to eat or get healthcare is not a human right under capitalism. They're going to keep squeezing and squeezing and squeezing blood from a stone until all of us are suffering. That is the reality situation. And so unless we take action, the sweeps will continue. And we have to, like Monica said, figure out, how do we do that beyond 3 days? How do we extend the ability to show up for these people and also to engage them as like agents in this organization in order to stop this from happening, in order to stop the city from targeting them? And I feel like if we can figure it out on like a city level, and then like a state level, that's like a long way towards figuring out how to do it on like a nationwide level. Like on a city level, I feel like it's so possible. Even looking at how like shook Tim Killer is by Celinda and Clifton, like it shows you like the massive impact that can happen when people are just like start taking action, start trying to figure out how they can respond, how like shook, scared, intimidated the people in power actually get, because they actually know what we're capable of. We still have to realize it.
I agree. Like, for example, we're posting about what they're doing. The next day, they have a response ready, right? They have a letter ready, on letterhead, you know, putting it out there in the community, and then anything we counter, they'll put out. But they're ready. Anytime there's an action where we're calling out the injustice in our community that's connected to this city or this state, they are literally within 24 hours responding because they know how powerful we are. So they're trying to shut us down. They're trying to minimize our voices, and they're trying to, what's the word? They're trying to capture the moment, right, to flip the narrative.
Weird. Let's see. So Rashad is saying that we need to figure out how to turn an enemy-held zone into a contested zone and then into a liberated zone. The 3 zones theory comes from the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, written by Kwame Nkrumah. So a zone under enemy control is exactly what it sounds like. The enemy is completely in control of the infrastructure, the education, the security of that area. That is almost all of the United States. I can't think of it as an exception, but yeah, most of the United States is a zone under enemy control. A contested zone is an area where the enemy still maintains power, but there is a revolutionary organization backed by a movement that is contesting for power with that enemy and actually has the chance of taking power, meaning they have infrastructure, they have long-term organization, they have ways to get produce their own supplies, like food, like weapons, and where they have a strong base among the masses of people living in that zone that backs the revolutionary organization. So that means the revolutionary organization is contesting for power and could actually take power. And then a liberated zone is a zone where the revolutionary organization and movement has complete control. So everything from like safety and security to communications to infrastructure to supplies, like the means of production, is completely controlled by the revolutionary movement. So at this present time, there are contested zones, mostly outside the United States, like contested zones in Africa. There's liberated zones in places like Cuba, but the majority of the world is under enemy control. And so like the 3 zones theory is a way of thinking like systematically about what are the places that actually belong to us, that belong to like the revolution, and like what are the places that we can like fight for and win with more organization, and what are the places that are like danger zones that are going to be like bases the enemy can use to attack us. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, it's the 3 zones theory of Nkrumah's and Touréism that Rashad is referencing. And then Trimmel says spontaneous rebellion is not long lasting. Organized rebellion is. That's absolutely one of the major themes in the movie. Even like it's the what kicked off the guerrilla revolutionary struggle was the murder of an African person. And what was different that time, because you know our people have been unfortunately been murdered continuously by this system, by police, by security forces, by the military, continuously for the entire existence of the U.S. empire. There's never been a point where they stopped. The only time where there's been a chance for them to stop is when the massive African people were organized to resist it. So like in the real life, the Black Panther Party and their cop watches and the organization of African communities is an example where African people like rose up and were like, not anymore. And the state was kind of like taken aback until they doubled down and destroyed the Panthers. And in the movie, the revolutionary struggle had been organizing underground and was basically just like, okay, it's going to be time soon for us to like rise up and like kick this off. And then like that uprising happened and they were like, okay, like this is our chance, let's go. But the only reason they were able to say this is our chance, let's go, is because they had done that long-term organization to be able to respond. And that's I feel like another serious question we have to consider is like, how do we get to that point where another African has been murdered by police? We're not just reacting, but we have the structure, the infrastructure, the movement, the ideology, the strategy ready to go. So that even if that's not the moment we're waiting for, we're still prepared to respond in such a way that something is going to be different this time. And then, who's this? They're armed, or should they? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's a question. No, that was a question about the contested zones, liberated zones. When you were talking about that, the zones in the Kwame Nkrumah Revolutionary Warfare, are those zones armed?
What's the question? What is the link to African humanism? I think that's how you refer to it. Is that the question? What question?
Oh, no, sorry. The question was about in the contested zones or the liberated zones, are they armed?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's part of it. Yeah. So like Guinea-Bissau under the PIGC, when they were fighting Portuguese colonialism, that was another example of a contested zone that they turned into a liberated zone. So like, yes, there's usually, if they're in charge of like the security of the zone, that does mean that they are armed. Absolutely. But they are also in control of like the education, in control of like the transportation infrastructure, of the production infrastructure. So it's not just about if they have guns. They could have guns and the zone could still be under enemy control. That's the case for a lot of places. In order for it to be a contested or liberated zone, the revolutionary movement and organization has to be able to take political power or contest for political power, which requires not just guns, but again, the full infrastructure to keep the society going in that particular territory. So yes, they have guns, but that's not enough. And then Trimmel says, liberated zones are where political education and the growing of food and material needs can occur. They are a necessity. Also, hello to everyone. Absolutely, 100%. I don't know if we read it on the channel, but we did read it at the Garden, the speech by Samora Machel Frelimo called Sowing the Seeds of Revolution, where he's talking about the African people in Mozambique figuring out how to grow their own food, produce their own clothing, produce their own supplies, and not having to depend on the Portuguese or on the colonial state. That was like a major part of how they were able to wage that revolutionary struggle. There was certainly the armed part of that revolutionary struggle, but they also had to figure out how they could hold this territory and not have to depend on the enemy to provide anything for them, anything. And they did. And that's a common feature of revolutionary struggles. That's how you become a contested zone and a liberated zone. Is not just the guns. It's building the entire infrastructure that people need to survive in the territory you're trying to control. Yes. And then this commentary applies to many revolutionary organizations. You make a good point. The one thing we don't have now is the preparation that you referenced. 100%. Like, that's what's missing. It's not that we don't have enough resources to win. People always talk about how we need money for the revolution. I'm like, that's not true at all. What we actually are missing is organization, is having people actively engage in the process of building and fighting a revolution, being active in revolutionary organizations that are carrying out these strategies, and also like reaching out to the folks who are not just like on our cliques in the left, but are part of like the masses of the people who need to be activated and become agents of this work. Like, that is what we don't have. It's not that we're outnumbered. We're not even necessarily outgunned. We're not like out-resourced. We are out-organized. They have superior organization, and that's why they're winning right now.
Thank you, Onyesabu. There was a question in the comments. A while back, you may have talked about African humanism. And so they were talking about if you could share that link in the chat around African humanism.
So that's like one of the aspects of Nkrumah's Terrorism as an ideology, which I could share the read about it. One moment. Let me see. There we go. So this is a page from the AAPRP website talking about our ideology, which is, again, Nkrumah's terrorism and African humanism and collectivism are all aspects of what we call the revolutionary African personality. So it's a tenet of Nkrumah's terrorism. So that's what I was referencing. And the liberated zone theory is also from Nkrumah's terrorism. So anything else you want to highlight, Monica, that stood out to you for the movie or that you want to talk about?
The last thing that I wanted to talk about, it's not what I necessarily want to close with. I think closing with organizing is really important, but it was making me think about the purpose of police and the purpose of police around protecting property that's not like our property, right? Protecting people who are wealthy, right? Protecting their property. The purpose of police have never been to serve and protect. We have saw that repeatedly. And then the reason why I was thinking about it more so is because in this week alone, we've seen the Albuquerque Police Department here in Chihuahua Territory commit a deep harm and state violence like they do repeatedly. And so recently there was African young person, 14 years old, that was in a home where there was an identified person they were looking for. And they continued to do flash bombs, war weapons in this home, while community and family said there is a child in that home repeatedly. And this child was burnt alive, 14 years old. And I was thinking about how police had no care or concern for this child whatsoever. They had no care or concern for this woman's property, and I know we're also on stolen land. And in this neighborhood, in the International District, there is very few home ownership, like of colonized folks. It's mostly apartment complexes, and on the warrant, it also talked about how the warrant talks about searching for the person as property. The African they were searching for as property, just going back to how the structures were created when our ancestors were enslaved. And we know that enslavement never stopped. It happens in multi-facets now. And so I was just reflecting on how this has never stopped, how it started since the kidnapping of our people, and how critical it is for us to be involved in disrupting and dismantling these systems that are causing so much harm, so much pain, like generational harm, trauma. Like, this is someone's child. And so, like, we have to see everyone as all of our people. Like, every African, no matter where they are our people, y'all. We have to have care and concern for our people. We should care if they're living, if they're dying. We should care about the needs of our people and check in on one another. And so, because we've been, taught to hate one another. And I was just thinking about these systems of policing, just really, really focusing on like property, right? And property that's like in the petty bourgeois, or property that's for the wealthy. They're never, ever going to be here to serve and protect. They're always going to commit violence because that's what they were created for. They're never going to change. And so, like, what is our role in organizing, building a movement that really, like, building community defense programs like those liberated zones, right? Or those contested zones around growing our food together, of building in political education, of organizing together, of long-term planning for the liberation of our people. So that's like what's on my heart right now. And just because of what's recently happened the last couple of days.
For sure, yeah. They will murder us, and then they will lie about it, and then the media will help them by covering for it, and the city will stand behind them when it happens. And so it's basically a situation. And this has been the case for quite some time because there is no revolutionary movement that can challenge them yet, where it just happens with impunity. And then, like, the next day after that happened, after they murdered that African child, the mass people took to the streets to like express their outrage, and the police were like there. Like, that whole march was surrounded by cop cars, and they knew why we were out there. They knew what they had done, and they just went out there bold as hell, no fear whatsoever of consequences, because they know that there will not be yet. There's no one that can give them consequences. And so I feel like we have to recognize the reality situation, which is that they are not afraid of consequences because there's no one that will provide them yet. And we have to think about how can we, again, build that revolutionary movement, build the organizations that can actually make these people afraid of what will happen if they do this to us. Right now, they're not. Right now, they're just like, we can kill this person in front of you. We can desecrate their body, and nothing is going to happen. If you try to do something, we'll completely surround you in such a show of force that you know that we could seriously do heavy damage to you at any time. And again, nothing will happen. That is the situation we're living with now. That is what we have to get serious about, like thinking seriously about how do we address this? How do we change this? And again, I don't think it will take that much. I think that we have to build the organization. We have to help people understand that we don't just have to sit and watch this happen, that there's more that we can do besides march or vote, that we can change these conditions. We can make them scared to go in our communities. We can make them scared to do these kind of things to us, but we have to have the organization first. That's it. And I think what that movie showed is like a strategy for doing that. They were like so shook. They sent in the National Guard. It didn't help. There was like, they had a force that was like powerful enough and organized enough to actually counter them. And so they're like, oh no, what do we do? Like it's possible with organization, but the kind of organization it will take is like not popular right now. We have to get to the point where people understand why it's needed, that we can't just react or vote, that we have to build long and slow and long term. And then comment in the YouTube is just reinforcing what you're saying about what the pigs did to that African child. They say it's indisputable, flashbang grenades in the home, wartime type material. Do we need more proof the police have declared war on the oppressed? And like, yeah, also what happened to that child is like not rare. It happened in the International District. And if you have ever lived there, you know, like they send out the SWAT team like 3-4 times a week. And it's never usually on the news. They will pretend to be serving a warrant and they will like tear gas entire apartment complexes. They'll send out like tanks. They'll send out like dozens of cops and like, you know, military gear. And that's just like what you have to live with when you live there. Because again, they know that no one's going to do shit. Like we can be mad, but we can't stop them. Not yet.
That's the key word, not yet. But we will.
Absolutely. We have no choice. Either that or, you know, it's a wrap for us. And I think that we will get it together. I think we will build that revolutionary organization. We have done it in the past and they have to work hella hard to destroy it. That shows we can do it. There's more of us now. We just have to build that consciousness and build that organization. And is there anything else? There's something I wanted to mention, but I forgot. So is there anything else you want to talk about?
No. Thank you so much for this discussion. And thank you all for all your comments and in the chat. It's been really good to watch this movie and be in virtual community with you all.
Cool. Oh yeah, so the last thing, what does Daniel say? Thank you so much for this awesome discussion, especially this concept of Nkrumah, a key framework that we need so much today to be able to move forward to more victories. Thank you both for the work that you do. Absolutely. Oh yeah, so the thing I would say is that, so if you were inspired by this movie, if this movie makes you want to get active in revolutionary organizing because you see like the possibility now, I would strongly encourage people to study like actual successful revolutions, not just in the United States, but like all over the world. Certainly in the United States, like study the resistance of indigenous people, like the fact that indigenous people are still alive, considering that the entire US government apparatus was organized around killing them off and they're still here and a lot of them are still on their land. That is something that we should learn from. Like, how did they do that? Another example, like I was talking about like long-term disruption, like instead of shutting down a highway for one day or a few hours, like maintaining those blockades for like 3 weeks, 3 months, a year. Like the American Indian movement's occupation of Alcatraz is something that we should study. They held that island 4 months. It was full of cops before they got there. They held it for months. The state of California and the federal government were trying to get them out of there. They were having people deliver them food, deliver them supplies. A lady gave birth there and was protected. They held it long term. Another example is like Standing Rock. I feel like African people are really good at spontaneous mass mobilization, that it's extremely disruptive and destabilizing to the US empire, but we do it for short periods of time. Indigenous people have historically been really good at holding like those long-term occupations. And I'm like, how do we combine those two approaches? Because if we could figure out how to be that disruptive and hold things for that long, there's a lot of things that we could do. So there's that. But yeah, study revolutions that won in real life. Study the Cuban Revolution, study the PIGC's victory in Guinea-Bissau, study the Algerian Revolution, study Vietnam, and then as you start studying the Haitian Revolution, and then as you start to learn about the strategies that these oppressed and colonized people use to defeat, you know, much more powerful enemies, sometimes multiple enemies in a row, which is what the Haitians did, then we will start to realize that, again, we are not outnumbered, we are not out-resourced, we are not outgunned, we are out-organized. And if you study how they built this up from scratch in Grenada, Guinea-Bissau, Algeria, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, you'll see that we could do it. They didn't even have the internet. Oh my God, like we have so many more resources and so much more access than they do. So clearly it can be done. And people here like there's no way we can win. I'm just gonna wait to die. Just say you're scared. It's so possible. Just study, please. You will get so inspired. And not just study, but also join an organization. Join a revolutionary organization and help develop that organization. Like, I feel like people will take the step of joining an organization and then be like, where's the revolution? Like, they don't understand that they have to like help build it. That it's not gonna come where you just like plug into it and then like a few months later the shit kicks off. Like, no, like if you join an organization, understand you have to do the work to build that organization long term, to find out what the contradictions are and organize to address those contradictions. Do not join an organization, stay in it for like 6 months and then leave and be like, that sucked. Oh my God, don't do that. Understand that revolution is a collective exercise, that joining the organization is a necessary step, a first step, but then you got to build with people long term, address the contradictions. If you cannot handle addressing contradictions within the context of a revolutionary organization, there's absolutely no way that you are going to be able to address contradictions on a society-wide level. My God. So I just wanted to say that. So please join an organization and also understand that you're going to have to build that organization. You are going to have to work collectively with other people to improve it. Please. So that's that. So if you're in occupied Tiwa territory, please join us at the Garden tomorrow at 5 p.m. We're going to be talking about feminist movements and the women's liberation struggle. So 1320 Arno Street, Southwest Avenida Cesar Chavez in Arno, starting at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Also, starting at 7 o'clock at the UNM bookstore, our comrades of the Autonomous Brown Berets of Albuquerque are hosting a gathering, speaking out about the murder of the African youth by the Albuquerque police. Also about Uvalde, like it's already out of the news, but in Uvalde, Texas, police stood and waited while an 18-year-old untrained kid with an AR-15 murdered dozens of elementary school children, and that police department, by it looking like they're going to get away with it completely. So our comrades of the Autonomous Brown Berets are hosting a mobilization where they're going to be talking about police terrorism and state violence against African and Chicano and indigenous or working class people. So that's 7, starting at the UNM bookstore. And the last thing I want to share is that the Gusanos, the Cuban counter-revolutionaries, are going to be acting up again tomorrow and July 11th, which is Monday. We know July 11th, 2021, they attempted to have disruptive mobilizations in Cuba against the Cuban Revolution. The Cuban Revolution was able to, counter that, put it down, but they're going to try again on the anniversary, which is Monday. So if you have a social media account, if you have folks who are doing work around anti-imperialism, consider boosting the truth about Cuba and the Cuban Revolution all through the weekend into Monday. Counter the lies that we know are coming. Post your support for the Cuban Revolution, for Cuba. Call for the end of the U.S. blockade, but make it clear that Cuba has support among the masses of people in the United States, and counter the lies that are coming. So this has been the Pan-African Film Series. We do this on the second Saturday of every single month at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, virtually. You can watch the next one in August at the same place that you're watching this one right now, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. We want to thank you for joining us so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. And also, if you're not active in an organization fighting for justice, join an organization fighting for justice and help build that organization so it is the best organization it can be. Have a good day.